"Oh my God, can you hurry up? Some of us have places to be." Mabel didn't turn around. She continued counting quarters onto the counter. The cashier, a young man named Deshaun according to his name tag, looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, take your time," he said to Mabel. "She's taking everyone's time," the girl said, louder now. "Why do old people even come to the store during rush hour? Order online like a normal person." The man behind the girl chuckled nervously. A woman further back in line shifted her weight but said nothing. Mabel set down the last quarter, then she turned around. Not quickly, not dramatically. With the deliberate calm of someone who'd spent 43 years as a public school teacher and had handled far worse than a teenager with an attitude problem. "Young lady," she said quietly, "I heard you." "Good, then hurry up." "I wasn't finished." Mabel's voice was low, steady, the voice of someone who'd controlled classrooms full of hormonal adolescents for 4 decades without ever raising it. "I'm paying for my groceries with the money I earned, at the pace I choose, in a line I have as much right to stand in as you do." "Whatever, Grandma, just move." Deshaun spoke up. "Miss, you need to calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down. This isn't your business." "This is literally my lane," Deshaun said, "and she's my customer." The girl rolled her eyes. "This is ridiculous." Mabel picked up her bags, tucked them neatly into her wheeled cart and paused. She turned back to the girl. "What's your name?" "Why?" "Because I'd like to know who I'm speaking to." "It's Brittany, not that it matters." "Brittany, I want you to know something. The woman you just told to hurry up taught school for 43 years. I had students who came in hungry, scared, and angry at the world. Some of them talked to me the way you just did. Good for them. They grew up. Most of them came back years later and apologized. The ones who didn't, I still think about them." Mabel paused. "I hope you're the kind who comes back." Brittany stared at her, mouth slightly open. Mabel turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the man who chuckled said quietly, "She just schooled you." Deshaun rang up Brittany's energy drink, $2.49. Brittany paid without a word and left quickly. But here's the part no one in line saw. In the parking lot, Mabel sat in her car for a moment. She pulled out her phone and called her daughter.
Trina, I need you to come help me.
What's wrong, Mama?
My hands are shaking. I can't drive yet.
What
A
happened?
girl in the store.
Girl in the store, she was just mean for no reason. "Mama, are you okay?" "I'm fine. I handled it. But I'm sitting in this parking lot and I can't stop my hands from shaking." Trina was there in 12 minutes. She found her mother composed, bags loaded, engine off. "You want to tell me about it?" "Not really. I just want to go home and make dinner." They drove home together. But Trina posted about it that night, not nomming anyone, just describing what happened. How her 71-year-old mother, a retired teacher, had been berated in a grocery store for paying with exact change. The post went locally viral. Deshaun saw it and commented, "I was the cashier. Your mom was incredible. She was calm the whole time. The girl wasn't. And for the record, your mom's coupon saved her $14.23. Queen behavior." The Kroger district manager saw the post and issued a statement about customer respect. And 3 weeks later, Mabel received a handwritten letter in the mail. No return address. "Dear Mrs. Jenkins, I was the girl at Kroger. My name is Brittany. I don't know if you remember me. I've been thinking about what you said, about the students who came back. I'm not in a great place right now and I was taking it out on everyone that day. That's not an excuse. It's just what happened. You didn't deserve it. I'm sorry. Brittany." Mabel kept the letter in her Bible. And every Sunday, she prayed for Brittany. Because that's what 43 years of teaching had taught her. Some people need correction. But everyone needs grace. The receptionist didn't look up when Dorothy Owens walked in. Dorothy was 68, wore her natural hair in a short silver crop, and carried a manila folder thick with medical records she'd organized herself. The waiting room of the new orthopedic clinic was sleek, modern, and clearly designed for a wealthier clientele than the community health center Dorothy usually visited. But her insurance had changed. Her previous doctor had retired, and this was the only orthopedic specialist taking new patients within 30 miles. So here she was. "Name?" the receptionist asked, still looking at her screen. "Dorothy Owens. I have a 10:15 appointment." "New patient?" "Yes." "Fill these out." A clipboard slid across the counter without eye contact. Dorothy sat down and began completing the forms. She had her insurance card, her photo ID, her complete medical history printed and organized in the manila folder. She was thorough because she'd learned to be. 26 years as a medical billing specialist at Baptist Memorial Hospital had taught her that the healthcare system had no patience for incomplete paperwork. At 10:35, 20 minutes past her appointment time, a medical assistant appeared. "Dorothy." "Yes." "Come on back." The assistant, young, white, brisk, led her to an exam room without small talk, took her vitals, entered them into the computer. "What brings you in today?" "Left knee, chronic pain worsening over the past year. I've had x-rays and an MRI at my previous provider. Results are in my folder." She held out the manila envelope. The assistant didn't take it. "The doctor will review everything. He may want to order his own imaging. The MRI was done 3 months ago. The results are current. I'll let him know." She left. Dorothy waited. 45 minutes. No one came. At 11:20, she pressed the call button. No response. She opened the exam room door and looked into the hallway. Empty. She walked to the front desk. The receptionist looked up, startled. "Ma'am, you need to stay in the exam room." "I've been waiting for 45 minutes. No one has come." "The doctor is running behind." "I understand that, but I'd like an update." "I'll check." The receptionist picked up the phone, spoke briefly, then said, "He'll be with you shortly." Dorothy returned to the room. 20 more minutes. At 11:40, a young man walked in, mid-30s, white coat, stethoscope, confident stride. But he wasn't the doctor. "Hi, I'm Tyler, the physician's assistant. Dr. Morrison asked me to do the initial evaluation. I was scheduled to see Dr. Morrison. He's running behind. I'll get you started and he'll come in after." Dorothy considered pushing back, but she was tired. Her knee was hurting from sitting so long, and she just wanted to be seen. "All right." Tyler didn't look at her folder. He did a quick physical exam, cursory at best, and then said, "I think we should start with some basic x-rays." "I have x-rays and an MRI. They're in my folder." "We usually prefer our own imaging." "The MRI was done at Baptist Memorial 3 months ago. Same machine you'd use, same protocols." "I understand, but Dr. Morrison prefers to spend my insurance money on duplicate tests." Tyler blinked. Dorothy softened her voice. She wasn't trying to be difficult. She was trying to be efficient. "I worked in medical billing for 26 years. I know how imaging orders work. I know what's covered and what gets denied. And I know that a 3-month-old MRI is clinically current for a chronic knee condition." Tyler looked at the folder for the first time. "May I?" "Please." He opened it, flipped through the x-rays, the MRI report, the notes from her previous physician. His expression changed. "This is very organized." "Thank you." "And the MRI clearly shows a meniscal tear with early osteoarthritis." "I'm aware." "Have you discussed surgical options?" My previous doctor recommended a partial knee replacement. That's why I'm here, for a surgical consultation. Tyler set the folder down. I'll get Dr. Morrison. He left. 2 minutes later, 2 minutes, after an hour and a half of waiting, Dr. Morrison walked in. Late 50s, professional, with the distracted energy of someone managing too many patients. Ms. Owens, I apologize for the wait. It's been an hour and 40 minutes. I know we're short-staffed today. That's not my concern. My concern is that your PA tried to order duplicate imaging I don't need, and no one looked at the records I brought until I insisted. Dr. Morrison glanced at the folder. Tyler mentioned you had outside records. I have a complete medical file, organized chronologically, with imaging, lab work, and physician notes. I brought it to save everyone time. Instead, I was ignored for over an hour while your staff didn't bother to review it. Dr. Morrison sat down, opened the folder, read. His eyebrows rose. This is remarkably thorough. I worked in healthcare for 26 years. I know what doctors need. You clearly do. He studied the MRI images. You're right, this is current and diagnostic. I wouldn't order new imaging. Then can we discuss the surgery? They did. For 30 minutes, Dr. Morrison was professional, attentive, and thorough. The Dr. Dorothy deserved from the beginning. As she was leaving, she stopped at the front desk. I'd like to file a formal feedback report. The receptionist looked nervous. About what? About being ignored for an hour and 40 minutes, having my records dismissed, and being treated as an afterthought in a practice I'm paying to visit. I can give you a patient satisfaction survey. I don't want a survey. I want the office manager's email. The receptionist provided it. That evening, Dorothy wrote a detailed email. Not angry, not vindictive, just factual. She described the wait times, the failure to review records, the attempt to order unnecessary tests, and the contrast between how she was treated and how she observed other patients, white, younger, being processed ahead of her. She CC'd the practice's compliance officer and the patient advocacy department of her insurance company. 3 days later, the office manager called. Ms. Owens, thank you for your feedback. We take patient experience very seriously. I know that phrase. What are you actually going to do? We're implementing a new intake protocol that requires staff to review outside records before the appointment, not during. We're also reviewing our wait time data to identify disparities. That's a start. And Dr. Morrison wanted me to tell you. He said you were one of the most prepared patients he's ever seen. I shouldn't have had to be, Dorothy said. Being prepared should be appreciated, not necessary for basic respect. 2 months later, Dorothy returned for her pre-surgical consultation. She was seen within 10 minutes of her appointment time. Her records were already in the system. The medical assistant greeted her by name. And when she left, the receptionist looked up and said, "Have a good day, Ms. Owens. See you next time." Eye contact and everything. The young couple thought they were being clever. Alma Washington, 74, retired postal worker, grandmother of 9, was sitting in the boarding area at Charlotte Douglas International Airport, waiting for her flight to Chicago. Her granddaughter's college graduation, first in the family to get a degree. Alma had bought the ticket 3 months ago, and she'd been looking forward to it more than anything in years. She was in a wheelchair. Her right hip had been giving her trouble since the fall last winter, and she'd been pre-boarded, then asked to wait in the jet bridge while they prepared the cabin. That's when the couple appeared. Young, white, early 20s, the kind of casual confidence that comes from never being questioned. They walked past the gate agent's podium while she was handling a phone call, stepped into the jet bridge, and spotted Alma. "Oh good, are you the wheelchair assistants? We need help with our bags." Alma looked at them. I'm not wheelchair assistance, I'm in the wheelchair. Oh, the young woman, blonde ponytail, oversized sunglasses pushed up on her head, glanced at her boyfriend. Well, are you boarding early? Because we need to get on before they close the overhead bins. I was pre-boarded. You'll board with your group. But our bags are really big, and if we don't. You'll board with your group, Alma repeated, her voice gentle but absolutely final. Can't you just let us go ahead? You're just sitting here. Yes, I am. In the wheelchair I need because my hip doesn't work properly, waiting my turn like everyone else. The boyfriend spoke up. Babe, just leave it. But the overhead bins. I said board with your group. Alma's voice hadn't changed volume, but something in it made the young woman stop talking. The gate agent finished her call and noticed the couple in the jet bridge. Excuse me, you can't be here yet. What's your boarding group? 4, the boyfriend admitted. Then you'll need to wait. We haven't even called group 1 yet. We were just trying to. Wait at the gate, please. They retreated, the young woman shooting Alma a look that was equal parts embarrassment and resentment. 20 minutes later, Group 1 was called. Then Group 2. Then Group 3. The couple was Group 4. By the time they boarded, the overhead bins near their seats were, indeed, full. A flight attendant helped them gate-check one bag. The young woman muttered, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear, "This wouldn't have happened if that old lady hadn't held us up." Alma, settled in her aisle seat in row 6, heard every word. She didn't respond, but the woman in the seat behind her did. "Excuse me, that old lady didn't hold you up. You tried to cut the line and got caught. Sit down." The cabin went quiet. The young woman sat down. And somewhere around 30,000 feet, the flight attendant brought Alma a warm cookie and a cup of tea. "Compliments of the crew," she said quietly. "We saw what happened at the gate." "Thank you, sweetheart. You handled it perfectly." "I've been handling things for 74 years. This wasn't even top 10. The flight attendant laughed. And when the plane landed in Chicago, Alma's granddaughter was waiting at the gate with a sign that read, "Grandma ALMA, MY first fan and MY biggest hero." Alma cried. Not because of the airport. Because of everything that had led to this moment. 42 years of carrying mail in sun and rain and snow, raising 4 children after her husband left, working overtime to help pay for college textbooks and SAT prep courses. All for this. A girl in a cap and gown, holding a sign calling her a hero. No entitled 20-something could take that away. Not today, not ever. The bank teller looked at the check, and then looked at Doris Hammond like she'd handed over a ransom note. "Ma'am, this is for $47,000. I'm going to need to verify this before I can process it." "Of course," Doris said. "It's from the sale of my mother's house. The title company issued it." "I see that, but for an amount this large, I need to speak with my manager." "Take your time." Doris was 69 years old, a retired insurance adjuster, and she'd been banking at this branch for 31 years. She knew the process. What she didn't know was that the teller, a young man named Kyle, had flagged her transaction as suspicious in the system before even speaking to his manager. The manager appeared, a woman in her early 40s named Jennifer Hastings. "Ms. Hammond." "Yes. We need to verify this check before we can deposit it. There's been a lot of elder financial fraud lately, and we have protocols." "I understand. What do you need from me? Can you explain how you came to have this check?" Doris looked at Jennifer steadily. She'd spent 28 years investigating insurance claims. She knew when someone was following protocol and when someone was fishing. "My mother passed away 6 months ago. I inherited her home. I sold the home last month through a licensed real estate agent. The title company issued this check at closing. I have the closing documents, the deed transfer, and the death certificate all in my bag. She pulled out a folder, organized, tabbed, labeled. Jennifer looked through it. This appears to be in order. Then can we process the deposit? I still need to place a hold on the funds, standard for large checks. How long? 7 to 10 business days. That's longer than standard. The Expedited Funds Availability Act requires banks to make funds from government and cashier's checks available within 1 business day. This is a title company check drawn on a major bank. 2 days maximum. Jennifer blinked. I'm not sure that's. I worked in insurance for 28 years. I know financial regulations, and I know my banking rights. The young teller, Kyle, was watching the exchange with wide eyes. Jennifer recovered. Let me check with our compliance department. She disappeared for 10 minutes. When she returned, her demeanor had changed. Ms. Hammond, you're correct. We can make the funds available within 2 business days. I apologize for the confusion. Thank you. And I want to assure you, we weren't questioning your integrity. Elder fraud is a genuine concern. I understand the concern, but there's a difference between protecting a customer and profiling one. You didn't ask the gentleman before me to explain his deposit. Jennifer paused. The gentleman before you deposited $300. And was he asked to explain where it came from? No. Because $300 from a white man doesn't trigger suspicion, but $47,000 from a black woman does. Jennifer's face flushed. That's not. I'm not accusing you of malice. I'm pointing out a pattern, and I'd suggest your branch examine how it applies fraud screening, because if it's consistently triggered by race and amount rather than actual risk indicators, you have a compliance problem. Doris picked up her deposit receipt. I've been banking here since 1993. I've never bounced a check, never been overdrawn, never missed a payment. 31 years of reliable history should count for something. She left. That evening, she wrote a letter to the bank's regional manager. Not a complaint exactly, more of a recommendation. She suggested they review their fraud screening triggers, examine demographic patterns in holds and verification requests, and train staff to distinguish between legitimate security protocols and unconscious bias. The regional manager responded within a week. They implemented a review. They found disparities. They changed the process. And Doris's funds cleared in exactly 2 business days. She used part of it to pay off her car. She used part of it to set up college funds for her 3 grandchildren. And she used $500 of it to take herself to dinner at the nicest restaurant in town. Because her mother would have wanted her to celebrate. And because 69 years of doing everything right deserved a good steak. The new neighbors moved in on a Saturday. Geneva Ross, 72, retired librarian, widow, gardener, and the longest-standing resident on Maple Street in suburban Atlanta, watched from her front porch as the moving truck unloaded. She'd lived in this house for 44 years, raised 3 children here, buried her husband from here, watched the neighborhood transform from all-black working class to mixed, then to increasingly white and affluent as property values rose. She'd seen neighbors come and go. These new ones, young, white, early 30s, had that particular energy of people who believed they were discovering a neighborhood rather than joining one. Geneva planned to welcome them. She always did. She had a tradition, homemade pound cake delivered within the first week. She'd done it for every new neighbor for 3 decades. But before she could bake the cake, the trouble started. On Tuesday, she found a note in her mailbox. Typed no signature. To the homeowner at 414 Maple Street. Your yard does not meet the neighborhood aesthetic standards. The garden beds are overgrown, the front fence needs repair, and the general appearance of your property is bringing down home values. Please address these issues within 30 days or we will be contacting code enforcement. Geneva read it twice. Then she looked at her yard. Her roses were blooming, her azaleas were full. Her vegetable garden, tomatoes, peppers, squash, herbs, was thriving in the raised beds she'd built herself. The fence had a section that needed painting, but structurally it was sound. Her yard was not overgrown, it was alive. Deliberately, beautifully, intentionally alive. She'd won the neighborhood garden contest 3 years running, back when there was a neighborhood garden contest, before the new residents started preferring minimalist landscaping with decorative gravel. The note didn't come from the HOA. There was no HOA on Maple Street. Geneva had personally fought against creating one 15 years ago because she'd seen how they were used to police black homeowners. This note came from a neighbor. A specific neighbor. Because when Geneva looked across the street, she saw the new couple, Chad and Meredith Lawson. She'd learned their names soon, standing on their pristine, freshly sodded, professionally landscaped lawn, looking at her property with expressions of distaste. Geneva put the note in a folder. She'd dealt with worse. The second note came a week later. We've noticed you have multiple vehicles parked on the street. This creates a safety hazard and is inconsiderate to neighbors who maintain their properties. Please limit street parking to one vehicle. Geneva had 2 vehicles, her Honda Civic and her late husband Gerald's pickup truck, which she kept because it was useful for hauling garden supplies and because she wasn't ready to let go of it. Both were legally parked on a public street. She put the second note in the folder. The third note came 5 days after that. We've noticed a strong odor coming from your property, likely from compost or animal waste. This is unsanitary and may violate health codes. Please address immediately. Geneva's compost bin was in the backyard, enclosed, properly maintained, and had never generated a single complaint in the 12 years she'd been composting. She put the third note in the folder. Then she walked across the street. Meredith answered the door. "Hi, can I help you?" "I'm Geneva Ross. I live across the street. I've been receiving anonymous notes about my property." Meredith's expression flickered, the smallest tell before settling into polished confusion. "Oh, that's strange. What do they say?" "That my yard is overgrown, I have too many cars and my compost smells. None of which is accurate." "Well, I'm sure someone is just concerned about property values. This is such a nice neighborhood." "It's been a nice neighborhood for 44 years, since before you were born." Meredith's smile tightened. "I didn't mean." "I know what you meant, but I want to be clear. My property is maintained, my vehicles are legally parked, and my compost bin is properly enclosed. If you have concerns, I'd appreciate you bringing them to me directly rather than leaving anonymous notes." "I didn't leave any notes." "I didn't say you did. I said if you have concerns." They looked at each other. Meredith blinked first. "Well, welcome to the neighborhood. I mean, we're the new ones, obviously, but welcome." "Thank you." Geneva went home and added the conversation to her folder. 2 weeks later, Geneva received a letter from the county code enforcement office. Someone had filed a formal complaint about her property. The complaint alleged overgrown vegetation creating rodent habitat, unsanitary composting operation, derelict vehicle on public roadway. The inspection was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Geneva spent the weekend doing what she always did, maintaining her garden, turning her compost, washing Gerald's truck. When the code enforcement officer arrived, a middle-aged black man named Marcus, he took one look at the property and said, "Ma'am, I'm not sure why I'm here." "Someone filed a complaint." I can see that. He walked the property, took photos, checked the compost bin, looked at the fence, examined the garden. Your property is immaculate. This garden is better maintained than anything else on this street. Thank you. The complaint is unfounded. I'm dismissing it. Before you do, can I show you something? Geneva pulled out her folder, 3 anonymous notes, her documentation of the conversation with Meredith, the timeline. Marcus looked through it all. You think the new neighbors filed the complaint? I think someone who moved onto a street with a 44-year resident decided that residents' property didn't meet their aesthetic preferences, and instead of introducing themselves and having a conversation, they chose harassment. That's a strong word. 3 anonymous notes and a false code enforcement complaint in 4 weeks. What would you call it? Marcus was quiet for a moment. I'd call it something I've seen before. So have I. What do you want me to do? Document the false complaint in your system. Note that the property was in full compliance. And if another complaint is filed, I'd like the source investigated. I can do that. He paused. Ms. Ross, for what it's worth, I grew up 2 streets over. My grandmother lived on this block for 30 years. I remember what this neighborhood was like before it changed. I remember too. Don't let anyone push you out. I've been here 44 years. I'm not going anywhere. Geneva didn't bake the Lawsons a pound cake. Instead, she did something else. She organized a neighborhood meeting. She'd done this before, years ago when the street needed speed bumps, when the storm drains were backing up, when someone proposed an HOA and she'd rallied the block against it. She still had the email list, updated it, added the new residents. The meeting was held on her front porch, her territory, her rules. 12 neighbors came, including Chad and Meredith. Geneva served lemonade and butter cookies. Then she stood and spoke. I've lived on Maple Street for 44 years. I've watched this neighborhood grow and change. I've welcomed dozens of new families. And I've always believed that what makes a neighborhood strong isn't uniformity, it's respect. She looked around at the faces, some she'd known for decades, some she was meeting for the first time. Recently, I've been receiving anonymous complaints about my property, my garden, my vehicles, my compost, all unfounded. A code enforcement complaint was filed and dismissed. Murmuring, uncomfortable glances. I'm not here to accuse anyone. I'm here to establish something. This street doesn't have an HOA. It never has. And the reason is that HOAs in neighborhoods like ours have historically been used to push out residents who don't fit a particular aesthetic. She let that word hang. My garden isn't overgrown. It's a food garden that produces vegetables I share with my neighbors. My husband's truck isn't derelict. It's legally parked and regularly maintained. My compost isn't unsanitary. It's how I keep my garden alive. She looked directly at Chad and Meredith. Not accusingly, just clearly. If anyone on this street has concerns about my property or anyone else's, I'd appreciate a conversation. Face to face, neighbor to neighbor. That's how we've always done things here. One of the longtime neighbors, Patricia, who'd lived on the block for 20 years, spoke up. Geneva's garden is the best thing about this street. She's been sharing tomatoes with me since 2004. Another neighbor, she helped me build my raised beds, taught me everything I know about composting. A newer resident, a young black couple who'd moved in 2 years ago, said, "We moved here specifically because of the gardens. It's what made this street feel like a community." Chad and Meredith said nothing. But after the meeting, as people were leaving, Meredith approached Geneva. "Ms. Ross, I owe you an apology." Geneva waited. "The notes were, I wrote them, and I filed the complaint. I was frustrated because your property doesn't look like what I expected when we bought this house. And instead of talking to you, I was a coward. Yes, you were. I'm sorry. I accept your apology, but I want you to understand something. Geneva set down her lemonade glass. When you moved onto this street, you joined a community that existed before you. A community with history, with relationships, with ways of doing things. Your job as a new neighbor isn't to change it to match your preferences. It's to learn what makes it work and contribute to that. I understand. Do you? Because those notes didn't just inconvenience me. They threatened my sense of safety in the home I've lived in for 44 years. The home where I raised my children and buried my husband. Meredith's eyes filled. I didn't think of it that way. I know that's the problem. Geneva picked up her glass again. But it's not too late to start thinking about it. Over the next few months, something shifted on Maple Street. Meredith started a neighborhood compost collective, with Geneva as the lead advisor. Chad helped Geneva repaint her fence. Geneva, true to form, eventually baked them a pound cake. Because that's who she was. Not someone who held grudges. Someone who held standards. And when those standards were met, even belatedly, she was generous enough to acknowledge it. 5 women, 5 moments, 5 people who assumed the wrong thing. Mabel in the grocery store, counting her quarters. Dorothy at the doctor's office, organizing her records. Alma at the airport, sitting in her wheelchair. Doris at the bank, depositing her mother's legacy. Geneva on her porch, defending her garden. None of them shouted. None of them made scenes. None of them needed to be rescued. They just stood their ground. Quietly, competently, completely. And here's what the entitled brats in these stories didn't understand. These women weren't weak because they were old. They were formidable because they were old. Because they'd spent decades learning how to navigate a world that underestimated them, learning when to speak and when to wait, learning how to document, how to advocate, how to demand without demeaning themselves. They'd survived worse than a rude teenager or a dismissive receptionist. They'd survived systems designed to overlook them. And they'd done it with the kind of grace that comes not from having it easy, but from having it hard and choosing dignity anyway. So the next time you see an older black woman moving slowly, paying carefully, sitting quietly, tending her garden, don't mistake her patience for weakness. Don't mistake her calm for surrender. Don't mistake her age for irrelevance. Because she has seen more than you, survived more than you, and she is absolutely, unshakably prepared for whatever you think you're about to try. These 5 women didn't need instant karma. They didn't need the universe to punish anyone on their behalf. They just needed what they'd always had. Themselves. Their dignity. Their documentation. And the unshakable knowledge that they deserved better, and the patience to make sure they got it. That's not karma. That's competence. And it's the most powerful thing in any room. Would you have spoken up? Would you have stayed seated? Would you have filed the complaint, written the letter, organized the meeting? These women did, not because they were brave, though they were, but because they were practiced, because a lifetime of being underestimated had taught them exactly how to respond when someone tried to make them small. Not with volume, with precision, not with anger, with records, not with confrontation, with the calm, absolute certainty that they belonged exactly where they were. And that no one, no teenager, no receptionist, no entitled couple, no nervous teller, no anonymous note, could take that away. Because you can't diminish someone who knows their own worth. You can only reveal your own ignorance. And these 5 women, they let the ignorance reveal itself. Then they went home and made dinner. Because that's what queens do. Age isn't decline, it's accumulation. Of wisdom, of patience, of knowing exactly when to speak and what to say. These women didn't need saving. They needed respect. And when it wasn't given, they earned it anyway. Not with volume, with valor, the quiet kind, the lasting kind, the kind that changes rooms without raising a single voice.